the official oil portrait of Jack Nicklaus in the USGA in Far Hills, New Jersey. I was commissioned to do that, and that was a fun painting to do. It was a large painting portrait. Jack sent me a replica of his putter. And
that's amazing.
And so my dog chewed it up. I hated that dog. It's not easy to draw. It's hard work to draw. You can't coast. You know, if I do a portrait, after I get it laid out and get the structure established and the values established, then I go right on the eyes, because if you miss the eyes, a good nose is not going to save it. You know,
that's a quote you can write down.
You are listening to Imagine, Create, Inspire, the podcast. Join host Bruce Andrews in conversations with creatives. Every artist has a story, and the struggle is real to stay inspired and in the flow. Join in the conversation by leaving us your comments, and thanks for listening.
Hey, I'm Bruce Andrews. I'm the Executive Director of the Shelby County Arts Council. Welcome back to the Shelby County Arts Center here in Columbiana, Alabama, in the middle of Old Mill Square Park. And I'm sitting here with my new friend, Ron Adair. He's a fabulous artist. He's a realist, I guess, is the nature of your artwork. But once again, I guess serendipity brings me a lot of pleasure sometimes. And in this case, Ron and his wife wandered into the gallery here at the Shelby County Arts Center. It must have been a year ago, right?
Yeah, that's about right.
And so you guys moved here from the Midwest, Colorado Springs?
Well, yeah, the Rocky Mountains, Colorado Springs, where we lived for about 22 years. Love the mountains, but we love Alabama. So we're grateful to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, just before we get engrossed in conversation here a bit about your work and how you came to be the artist that you are, we have an exhibit that we're collaborating on.
Yes.
It's America's Favorite Pastime. That's what we're calling it. And it's all your artwork that has to do with the baseball themes. You've done much more than that. But it'll open on June the 2nd, and we'll have an actual ceremony that night, a sort of festive little gathering from 6 to 8, and we'll reveal a portrait that we're going to talk about here. It's going to be exciting, an original painting of yours.
Good.
But anyway, tell the the nature of production for a baseball card back in the day. How did that work, Ron?
Sure. Well, they don't do it anymore, but Upper Deck and Donruss and Topps used to commission illustrators of their choosing to do original, from-scratch oil portraits of the people that are represented on these cards. And they don't do that anymore for different reasons. Most of it is just cost.
Yeah.
And of course, technology. Nowadays, sports cards that bear images of players from these different professional leagues are usually photographs that either have been kind of artsy-fied in Photoshop, slap a couple of filters on there to kind of modify them, just give them a little bit more of an art look, or they're just straight photographs. But so there was a window of time in there where they did go to the trouble of trying to locate competent illustrators who loved sports to do these things. And I've got a binder at home, my goodness, between NFL, NHL, MLB, and hockey. I've done scores and scores, probably a couple of hundred oil portraits, most of them for Major League Baseball. Second, I did a lot for the NFL, and also these other two sports.
So all you artists listening out there, you said a couple of hundred.
Yeah. These were 8x10s. They were not big paintings, but again, keep in mind that these paintings were going to be reduced down in size to be formatted to a baseball card. And so that's always great from an art standpoint. If you do the artwork usually larger, 2.5 to 3 times at least larger than the reproduction size, then all those features and things, it tighten up nicely, and it makes the artwork look, excuse me, a little bit better than it would if you just look at the original.
Ron, do you remember the first one of those commissions that you got?
Well, I don't remember the first one. I remember getting started in MLB. Major League Baseball was the deal. Donruss was licensed to produce these cards, and I think my first work was for Donruss. And I just remember launching, I think Roberto Clemente was one of my first paintings, if I'm not mistaken. and my twin brother Don, who is a marvelous illustrator.
Oh, really? He is as well.
He was 3 minutes. We were born 3 minutes apart, identical twins, and he was really a very gifted illustrator. And we worked together, side by side, giving our unvarnished critique of each other's work all the time, which helps you get better. You know, when you have somebody that's willing to say, "Don't take this personally, but that really stinks what you're doing right there," you listen to that because he kind of knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And so Don would critique my work, I would critique his, but Don was busy doing work for these companies as well. He and we're the only two brothers that I'm aware of that were commissioned to do original oil paintings for any of the card companies that were doing that at the time.
What's the process? I mean, you start with pencil comps and get those approved, or how?
Well, usually the deadlines, they knew your work pretty well. It's straightforward. They would provide the reference.
Mm-hmm.
Usually those came in the form of JPEGs through email. I would print them out on a high-resolution printer, and I tried to print the artwork as much as I could, the faces, very close in size to the size that were going to be painted, because it's easier to look at size relationships and how the features line up if there's not a great size difference in your painting and what you're looking at for reference. But then you draw an accurate. We did these on 8x10 canvases, gessoed covered canvases, and we would draw carefully in pencil. And usually at that point, I would give them some workable fixative to kind of seal the pencil, because what you do when you start a painting is kill the white by just laying down a blanket kind of transparent wash, usually a sepia color, over the entire canvas. Let that dry, and then you may glaze over it with another couple of colors, let those dry, then start adding value to that kind of defines the features, just value, not so much color, and just to kind of get the structure there, and then
sort of carving it out.
Kind of an articulated attempt without getting too concerned about color, just getting the value established so that the structure of the face starts to come to the
kind of a Norman Rockwell approach in a
way. I could wax eloquently, I think, about some of the old masters, the emphasis they put on glazing, transparent glazes before they actually started putting opaque paint on the painting. But usually the deadlines were such they trusted you. I would do a couple of these a week. Sometimes 3 if I'm really getting after the program, and scan them usually, and then send the originals back to Upper Deck or Donruss.
So as far as baseball players, I mean, so you're not only getting these commissions as an artist, but you're actually a fan.
Oh, yeah, love the game. I played it as a little boy. Wasn't really good enough to play much beyond Little League, but I just love the sport. My wife and I both enjoy, even today, watching baseball players do what they do.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And your work is so extraordinary. I love the paintings, and folks, when they come to the exhibit, will be able to see replications of those paintings, and in some cases some originals. But I'm a real fan of your pencil work. It's just it's extraordinarily. Lyrical lines and expert cross hatching, just the way you carve out form is definitely your style.
Well, it's interesting, Bruce, that you mentioned pencil, because I probably my best work probably is pencil work. That's what kind of put me on the map professionionally. The U.S. Postal Service and the U.S.
Talk
Stamps.
about that a bit.
Well, sure. The lead up to that is. For all of the people who like to do artwork, or someone that does who's listening, I would encourage you, or personally, if you do artwork or someone you're talking to, it's important for the artist to find heroes, go out and look for examples of artwork of people that they consider the very best, work that they would like to try to match at some point, or at least get as close to that as they can. So locating your hero or heroes is really important. It would be like learning to play tennis with somebody that's a lot better than you.
Did y'all hear what he said? I mean, that is so on point. I mean, like everybody in whatever business you're in, particularly artists, musicians, leadership positions, whatever, they'll say find a mentor. Well, mentors are difficult to find.
Exactly.
I mean, a live mentor, but heroes, especially with YouTube and connectivity, you can find a hero and emulate them.
Yeah.
You know.
And speaking of that hero, Paul Calley, who's no longer living, was and will forever remain, I think, the best pencil illustrator that's ever picked up a pencil. He was just amazing. He was prolific. And
Paul
so,
Calley.
Calley, C-A-L-L-E. You can Google him and just see amazing work that he's done. I've got a good bit of his stuff. Well, I studied his stuff. He was my hero.
Yeah.
He was the guy that I studied. And my rendering style is different than his, but it echoes him. So much to the point that when I was in the post office one day at Christmas, waiting in line to mail something forever, looked up on the walls around there, and I'm looking at these posters publicizing these stamps, and several of them were Paul Calley pencils. And I'm saying, I can do that. By golly, I'm going to contact these guys. So I sent them some samples
That's bold.
Of my work to the U.S. Postal Service.
And what is it, 70s, 80s? When
this would be probably 78 when I did this.
Okay, I mean, interrupt you. Sorry about that. I was trying to get a
No,
little time
don't
frame.
interrupt any time. Yeah. So about 78, and so I put about 6 or 8 pencil samples, copies, sent them to the U.S. Postal Service, and a month later I got a call from a guy named Stephen DeHanos, who was a contemporary of Norman Rockwell, an old-timer, but he was the stamp coordinator at the U.S. Postal Service at that time. And he said, we got your work, and it reminds us of Paul Calley. We'd love to have you do some stamps. And so right off the bat,
I bet that was an exciting.
That was exciting, and it's one of the best books, interestingly enough, on Paul Calley that I've got. The foreword was written by this guy Stephen DeHanos, who was a marvelous illustrator back in the day.
Really? So he was appointed to that position for the post office, but he was actually a great artist himself.
Before he went to work as the stamp coordinator, he did. He was an illustrator. Did Saturday Evening Post covers and all the big stuff that Norman Rockwell did. He was quite an illustrator.
That's awesome. What great.
So that's how I got into it. I had a hero.
Yeah.
I studied him. I mimicked some of the way he chiseled his and articulated and sculpted the form with a pencil.
So in order for people to sort of track and apply this to themselves, I mean, you went to school to be an artist?
Yeah, I knew I knew by my last couple of years of high school that I could draw better than I could sight read music. I love music and still do, but I could draw better than I could read music. I think Ray Charles could sight read better than me. Yeah, and so my twin brother and I both went to one of the top universities that had an art school attached to it, that one of the top 3 or 4 in the country, Washington University in St. Louis.
Cool. So interesting that you had that. It always interests me talking to artists. You know, wherever it meets for them, skill, talent, practice, epiphanies, all those things that lead to your road to success, whatever that is for you. But in your case, you had this epiphany by waiting in line at the post office, looking at Paul Calley's illustrations, and that phone call was a big page turner for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the thing is. I think, when you do commercial artwork back in that day, before the web and computers, if you did something that was published that was a good piece of artwork, then to the extent that magazine or poster or book cover was distributed, that's how you got work, because people who needed and bought illustration would see things in print and then run down the illustrator that did it. And that's how the Brooks Robinson Hall of Fame poster and some other Brooks-related stuff came into being. Because
talk about that a minute. The Brooks Robinson Hall of Fame.
I had done a bunch of sports work that got nationally distributed through a couple of magazines that led to several different things, and somehow somebody connected with the company where Brooks worked, Crown Central Petroleum. They were really trying to promote him, and as he was going into the Hall of Fame, they tripped over my work, and so they called me, and oh wait, no, oops, it was Word Publishing that did his autobiography. I had a senior moment there, Medicare moment. It was Word. It was a publishing company doing the autobiography of Brooks Robinson. They had seen my work. They commissioned me to do the cover of Brooks, the original of which will be in the show here that we
That's
have.
so amazing, man.
And it was on the basis of that book cover that the Hall of Fame thing kicked in, because they saw that and they thought, well, this is a guy that does decent baseball work, and he likes baseball, and he did Brooks's autobiography, so let's get him tied into the Hall of Fame poster.
That's so cool. Well, before we circle back to all
Yes.
things baseball,
Yes.
I mean some of the other extraordinary figures that you've had the opportunity to be commissioned to illustrate, kind of hit on some of that. I mean, it's
Well, the official oil portrait of Jack Nicklaus in the USGA in Far Hills, New Jersey. I was commissioned to do that, and that was a fun painting to do. It was a large painting portrait. Jack sent me a replica of his putter, and
that's amazing.
And so my dog chewed it up. I hated that dog. That was a really great looking putter until a black lab worked it over for about 15 minutes.
There's a moment of sadness there.
It takes a big aggressive dog to mess up a putter. But,
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, that real leather back in the day.
that's
is
right.
Yeah.
That's right. But did that painting, and my brother, who was a jokester, came back in after lunch one day just before I was going to box this thing up to send it north, and Jack had already come down and approved it with his wife. They came in and wanted to look at it before I sent it off to New Jersey, and she liked it. Barbara liked it, as was. Jack wanted me to add just a little bit of hair to one spot, which I did. But then my brother took a black magic marker and painted a Hitler mustache on this original oil painting. And I came in and I saw it and I could not believe it.
Yeah.
And he and the other guy, the three of us, they were both in on this. I couldn't believe he did this, because a black magic marker on an original oil painting is not a good thing.
No, I'm laughing because I'm hoping there's a resolution to this story.
Well, I thought my heart just stopped,
Yeah.
and then I thought rationally, well, he couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So I went over and took a close look, and I could see the flesh tone in between the strokes of Hitler's mustache kind of coming through. And he really did that. But then I looked at it. He had taken magic mending tape, which you couldn't see, and he did the mustache and then cut it with an X-Acto just around the marker and then stuck it on there to make it look realistic.
He went to a lot of trouble to have that moment with you, didn't he?
So I wanted to kill him, But anyway, but that painting's in Far Hills at Golf House and for the USGA. My goodness, I've done some stuff of political stuff for the Republican National Committee of Reagan and Bush that were fun projects. Other portraits. Mayors. The mayor of Dallas asked me to do his wife. These projects come, and you're grateful for them, because if the phone doesn't ring, you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs.
So you've been what a lot of people would want to be these days. You have been what I would call a full-time artist.
Yep.
For better part of 4 or 5 decades.
Yeah, since 70. I started, but I've been self-employed since 72 with a couple of minor 2 or 3 year periods of time.
And so, Ron, did you ever have anything that resembled an agent, or is this work just coming to you?
Good art reps are hard to find. We had a decent one that we used, and he did some good. And he would, back in the day, when there were such things as art reps, they don't have reps for illustrators. They don't even have illustrators anymore, for the most part. I mean, but he would take your work to different clients and pitch your work to them. And I got a fair amount of work through him, but probably half of what I got within a certain number of years that I had him, probably half of the work I got came through him.
That's awesome, man. What a great career you've done. What a lot of people would like to do is I love quotes, so I'm always one of my favorite guys to quote is Zig Ziglar.
Oh,
remember
yes,
that old guy?
Yes.
He said that success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile dream. So, in other words, it's another way of saying you never arrive, but, try to plot your course and enjoy the journey. And so you've done that. And I'm glad we'll be able to celebrate it in this exhibit we're having in June. So it's going to be fun.
Well, the key thing is work hard, try hard, always learn and grow. I'm still trying to learn to draw and paint better, especially paint better. But you can always get better. And, I take my effort seriously, but I really don't take my work that seriously. I mean, I'm not really, I'm thankful for the career that by God's grace that I've had, but there are other things in life more important than doing artwork. I just been very blessed to have been able to do that and have some interesting. When you freelance, you have a wide variety of projects that come in from things that just kind of pay the bills and other special projects. The stamp work, they would send you to the first day of issue ceremony for a day. You get to be a big shot and hang out with some neat folks for the Gone with the Wind stamp, Margaret Mitchell.
You did the Gone with the Wind stamp?
Well, it was actually Margaret Mitchell who wrote the novel.
Yeah, wow. That's even better.
And she was no longer living, but Butterfly McQueen, who was in the movie Gone with the Wind, I was sitting next to her on the deal during the first day of issue ceremony, and she went up and did the famous line in front of the microphone. I don't know nothing about Birth of No Baby or something, some line from the movie. So those are fun things. They issue the stamp. The U.S. Postmaster is there. Other people connected with the events, and so those things happen, but they're rare compared to the day in and day out doing work for more clients that like your work and they call you back to do more. So
yeah, it's like another axiom I heard or truth I heard that I liked is that what you do and who you are is two things. That what you do changes, but don't let who you are change.
Yeah,
and who you are as an artist and you're the embodiment of that. But what you've done that relates to that is in flux all the time.
Yeah. Well, if an artist gets too prickly about criticism, that's a bad situation because everybody can learn. Nobody's done a perfect piece of artwork, I don't think.
That's so well said.
But I still can't do feet worth a darn. I mean, you turn, if
you hear this pro say you can't do feet.
Well, if I turn them at a certain angle, they look like kind of bricks or something. I don't know. But so I'm still working on toes and metatarpals or whatever. But I was bone monitor at Washington University. We drew most of the 206 bones of the body.
Wow.
We got down to the structural, what's underneath that lump that you see on the arm, what's causing that besides the muscle.
Right.
So we really learned anatomy from a guy that was marvelous, and I'm grateful for the training at Washington University that I had.
When I was in art school at UAB, so this is where, I fell short of your path. When I was in art school at UAB, I had a friend that I used to run with. I guess you'd say he's my wingman. And so you know how you pick classes, at the end of the year, or you start plotting your course for the next year.
Yeah.
And this friend of mine said, well, you need to take, because I was going to UAB, which is by reputation a medical school. So he said, you need to take anatomy. This is in the 1980. He said, you need to take anatomy with me, human anatomy. And I said, man, brother, I don't need to be in that class. I don't know if I can stand it, being there, because they got cadavers and everything. And he said, we'll meet some nurses. They're all in there. So that was my motivation. He talked me into it by telling me that Da Vinci and, pulling that card.
Yep.
And so I did learn a little bit more than I wanted to learn, and I was very uncomfortable with the cadavers. As a matter of fact, my recollection of that class is that somebody told me that if I put Hall's cough drops in my mouth, it would dull the sense of smell as I looked at the cadavers. So most of the time, my eyes were watering so much when I was in there, I couldn't see what I was looking at. But I wish that I had been more studious at that time.
Yeah. Well, those fundamentals, to me, good art is the foundation of good art is good drawing. That doesn't mean you have to render realistically. It doesn't mean that you have to try. I want my art to look like a piece of artwork and not like a photograph, but I do tend to be representational. But I think good drawing is so much at the base of really all good art by my thing. And when I teach, which I've done some teaching, I stress good drawing.
Yeah.
And that just takes time. It's not easy to draw. It's hard work to draw well.
Right.
You have to be awake.
What's the guy that did Tarzan? Bern Hogarth? Is that
What's
ring?
that?
The guy that did the Tarzan comics, Bern Hogarth, wrote a series called Dynamic Anatomy, and he sort of echoed your thoughts about the hard work of.
Yeah, you can't coast. You know, if I do a portrait, after I get it laid out and get the structure established and the values established, then I go right on the eyes, because if you miss the eyes, a good nose is not going to save it. You know,
That's a quote you can write down.
Well, you know, the earlobe's just as important when you get to it. You just can't go to sleep and coast. You've got to be picky.
Can't just stick one on there.
And just be disciplined and don't chip out, because it shows. Pencil, watercolor, those mediums, a third grader can see if it's poorly done. So,
Right.
You know.
So well said, man. That's good coaching. So back around full circle to the
Yes.
to the exhibit.
Yes.
We're going to open it June the 2nd. So let's tell folks what they're going to see when they come to the exhibit.
Well, they're gonna see a few, not many, a few originals that will be there, baseball related, and they're going to see a lot of prints. The prints that I have there will all be individually signed for people that they're interested in maybe taking something home. The prints that are the main thrust of the show will be, I think, about 28 or 29 framed 16 by 20s that contained individually signed reproduction prints of the portraits that I've done for Major League Baseball.
Awesome.
And these are just 27 out of, I've probably done 120 or 30 baseball portraits, I'm guessing, and that's not counting the other sports. But these prints are printed on archival paper. The colors art fast, so they're good quality prints. And they're going to cut out a little niche at the bottom of the mat under the glass where they will attach one of the actual baseball cards that larger reproduction portrait was done for.
Awesome.
So you'll see the application of the artwork as well as an enlarged image of the portrait.
Right.
Nicely matted and framed by our good folks that you and I have contacted.
That's right. And so we can give them shout-outs, but
Yes. Bill's Custom Art and Frames, I think, is who they are. They're in,
Alabaster.
I guess they're in Alabaster,
think
right there
so.
on 31, but they are great people. They are great.
So we're doing that, and and our objective here, one of our objectives, as we have want to do at the Arts Council, is to show people the embodiment of your work, your portfolio, give a historical perspective of what you've done. And, of course, Liberty Day is happening in Columbiana, so it's a patriotic festival. So we thought America's favorite pastime be a great fit. And so what I'm really excited about, or over the top about, is that you're doing an original portrait
Yes.
for this thing that we're going to auction off and give the proceeds to the Columbiana Youth Sports League.
Right.
And so tell the folks about that portrait.
Yes. Well, Hank Aaron, it was was who we decided to do. And with his history originally in Alabama and then, of course, with the Braves, I thought that was a great choice. And I contacted the Braves organization. I told them about what we were doing, asked them if they would be able to assist me in providing an image that would give me the permission to paint the painting.
Just like you would have done a baseball card almost.
Yeah. Thankfully, with a baseball card, I wasn't involved in getting rights. The card companies were already licensed by Upper Deck. I mean, MLB licensed Upper Deck and Donruss and Thompson Leaf to do these cards. So as an artist, I didn't have to be a part of the process of the logistics of getting the images. With this particular project, I did engage. The Braves were real happy to send me a nice picture. They sent several pictures of Hank Aaron. I picked the one that I thought was best for what we were doing. It's a 16 by 20 oil painting on masonite. It was gesso, but I've added a couple of coats of gesso before I started the drawing just to make sure that it was a good, ready to paint on. And then just began the process of very carefully, printing out good reference for him, very carefully drawing it off with this because it's oil again. After I did the pencil, I went over the line with a real fine ink pen that was permanent, that turpentine would not disturb, because I put several glazes of color on the painting, transparent glazes where I could see the line work come through, but I wanted some undercolor there to what I call kill the white, get rid of the white masonite, and use that then to helps keep your values and color a little closer together, so that the painting doesn't look like you got too wild with the whole palette, and so forth. But the painting is finished. It's been fun. It's drying still under 2 fans. I will get a day more varnish on it before it goes into the frame. But I think it looks like Hank Aaron. I hope so.
I'm so excited about it. So actually what we're going to do, I mean, this is huge, people. If you're a baseball fan or you're just a fan of portrait art, portraiture, it'll be something to see. On June the 2nd from 6 to 8, we'll have this gathering, this reception, and that's when we'll unveil the painting.
Yeah.
Now, if you're interested in seeing the exhibit, we'll actually probably be done with that May 16th or May 17th. We're going to have a kind of a soft opening and leave the artwork open, and we're open down here at in Columbiana at the EBSCO Fine Art Gallery from Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and also when we have events here. So definitely come by and see the exhibit, but make plans to be here June the 2nd from 6 to 8 p.m. because we're going to unveil that painting.
Yeah, and I'm going to have some family out of state here and people that we encourage to play baseball. My family is kids and 22 grandkids are most of them are old enough to enjoy and appreciate and play the game of baseball. So that's been a big part of my life growing up, is just enjoying the sport. Of course, the sports cards and other sports work that I've done related to baseball has been a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, man. This will be a great day for all of us, and we're all things considered, we're all about honoring and proud to celebrate your body of work, dude. Well,
thank you. It's a delight to be here with us, talking to you this morning, but just to be a part of this amazing thing that you guys are doing. I've been a real evangelist for the Shelby County Arts Council and Center. I've waxed eloquent about it to any number of different people from church and other places. So there's going to be I hope there'll be a nice, varied group of people come that will just enjoy that love baseball or have an appreciation for it. I hope a lot of them show up.
Me too. I think they will, and it'll be up again about May 16th. It'll continue on through July 4th, and again we'll have the big apex of it on June 2nd when we unveil the painting. So, Ron, it's a pleasure talking to you, my brother.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thanks for listening to Imagine, Create, Inspire, the podcast. For more information on the Shelby County Arts Council, please visit www.shelbycountyartscouncil.com.